Okay, everyone out there on Blab today, this is Leland Best, former co-host of Blab Nation, but now, as you all know, I'm starting some of my own things out here on Blab, so welcome to the show. Today we've got a special guest from down there in Austin, Texas, who was just out to South by Southwest with some of you other folks out here who are big on social media. We've got Discovery Channel's Scam School and Nat Geo's Hacking the System. Brian Brushwood, whichever side of the camera you're on, you want to say hello to the audience today?
There we go. So I guess in Blab, we're just all visible all the time, huh? So it's like I have to be on my best behavior. I can't be. Normally, I wait for the camera to shift away, and then I grab my coffee mug and start having a sip.
No, I don't want anything lost in process here. This is one of those places where you've got to be the real you. You can't get away with any of those fancy gimmicks except for a couple of screen shares back and forth. If you want to play around with your Wirecast, you're more than welcome.
Speaking of which, congratulations on your winning a license to Wirecast, man. That's amazing.
Thanks, Brian. It was Stephen Haywood's event over there with the boys at Broadcast Now, where I met you actually one night. Got on the phone through Skype with you to ask you a simple question about your business. And it was that weekend, that Friday, that I got back on their show later that night, did a little Jeopardy theme thing and blew it out of the water, half in the bag actually, but it went it went down. And yeah, along with that, we've got another person out in the seats, Keshesesi. How do you say that? Kasachesi. Nazim out there in the seats took the third prize that night by default. Actually, someone else had won it, and he came in as a sick contestant, actually, with this flu that you and I were both talking about before the show. And he had like the pity vote going on, and the third place winner didn't have an Apple or an iPhone, so he turned the software back into the sponsors of the show, and they gave it to the second runner-up, which was Nazim. So he's also in the crowd today.
Right on, man.
Well, we're waiting for our co-host, and she hasn't seemed to have shown up. Cue the Blab or cue the brand. When you get here, just ring in. I know you've got links, but let me check really quick before we get too far along. I know it's early for her. She's on the West Coast. It's going to be 7 a.m., so she should be here any minute. Or if she's out in the seats now, please come in. Brian, I've been following you for quite a while, and I just have to show the crowd here. Let's see if we can do this real quick. I've got a picture of you from back in the day. Brian's what you might, oh, here she comes. Hello, Q. Come on in. This is Q the Brand. Q the Brand. Welcome, Brian Brushwood.
Hey there.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm great.
Sorry for the craziness.
Oh, you're all right, Q. And I'm not going to expect you to just be a quiet co-host today. I want you to, come on in here if you've got anything that pops up. I'm going to ask the crowd to hold back on the questions until toward the end of the show, and I will allow some people to probably jump in a seat to say hi to Brian personally. We had one visitor earlier before the show started, but I'd be happy to let you guys come in and say hi to Brian toward the end before he leaves. We're just going to ask him a few questions as we move along here. And I have to pull up my calendar event real quick here, so I actually have your question list because I didn't have it with me when I came in like a fool. Brian, you started out as a punk rock magician.
Yeah.
I've got pictures of you with this crazy spiked haircut that I'm going to show the crowd here in just a minute once I get to it. I find you've changed your look a little bit. You've done all kinds of, here's just an example. I'll try to drop this in here once I get it. Now we have this drop link Q. It is available for us, so feel free to use that if you want at any time. Let me get a picture here. I've got several of them, but I want to make sure I get one that's decent. Who cuts your hair, by the way? I just have to ask.
Oh, that was one of the tricks. As I spent so much time on the road, I had to learn how to go into any barbershop and walk them through it at the time. It was, there was a time before social media where it was entirely possible for you to go do an entire 75-minute live stage show, completely blow the audience away, get a standing ovation, have people tell you how much they love your show, and 6 months later have not a single person remember a single thing about you. Not your name, not they could vaguely remember your tricks or whatever. So it was way important in the early days to have some kind of distinctive sticky look. And I went through a bunch of phases. I had like long hippie hair down past my shoulders. I had bright green hair for a while. And then ultimately, I was a huge fan of, video game imagery. So I decided I wanted to look like Guile from Street Fighter 2. And so I figured out over the years how to spike my hair in these crazy punk rock spikes.
And I think you pulled it off pretty well, all in all. That's
how much product is what I want to know.
You know what? I ended up, hold on, let me see if I could do this.
I can't imagine. I mean, like, I don't use a ton, but I have a ton of hair. But like, if it were to all go up.
Yeah. Well, I ended up actually, I ended up making a tutorial on how I did the hair back in the day, but with a time lapse of showing, I'd grab a bunch of some pomade to at least get it vertical, and then individually pull out each spike using a bit of beeswax on there. And the nice thing is, once it was up, it would actually last for, I don't know, 2 or 3 days, and then I'd have to wash everything out and do it again.
How would you sleep on that, dude? What kind of would you sleep?
That was the best part. When I slept on it, because the sides of the head were shaved, I would, I'd lay down, and then you'd wake up, you'd have like a few stragglers off to the side. You just sort of muscle them back into place. And it was literally outside of setting it up, it was the lowest maintenance haircut I've ever had.
Really? That's pretty wild, because that's something I just got off a whole bunch of hair. I had a whole bunch of hair, and I just cut. Well, I let my wife cut it off just recently, so I'm back to short hair again. But I've got to get something going here, because it's kind of sticking up in every direction. So yeah, back in those days, then I think about the fact that you had a lot going on with your magic show, and I've seen you on Penn and Teller. I don't know if a lot of folks out there have had that opportunity to see you out there. But tell me a little bit about what got you on the show there. That was a little while back, wasn't it?
No, I mean, it was just, it was less than a year ago. It was just over the summer. It was interesting because I've had a correspondence with Teller for almost 20 years now. When I first started doing magic, I wrote him this letter, essentially saying the letter was titled Fury. I said, Teller, I'm furious at you, because not for being brilliant or original, but because you got there first. And because you got there first, I can't do the kind of magic I want to do without looking like some kind of cheap Penn and Teller knockoff. Anyway, thanks, you jerk. If you have any advice, let me know. And he ended up writing me back this amazing 4.5-page letter, this essay on the nature of creativity and what it means to love your craft and love your art, and how it's so important to get out there and absolutely love doing magic and do it in, he told stories about how Penn and Teller did a show in a full-on race riot with erupting all around them, but they kept going because they needed the money. And it kicked off this 19-year correspondence between the two of us. And early last year, this is just as Hacking the System came out, I got an email from the production team over at Penn and Teller, Fool Us, saying, hi, you're a magician. We like your wacky magic. We think you should compete on Penn and Teller's Fool Us. And I forwarded it to Teller, saying like, well, I guess I'm disqualified because I've known you for 19 years. And he said, oh no. He says, we very strictly keep everything clinically distant between us and production. You should really consider doing it. They don't tell us anything about it. We have no idea who's going to go on there. We've had friends show up on the show before, and it's like, they wear it on their shoulder or on their sleeve that it's not really about fooling people on Penn and Teller Fool Us. It's about putting on an entertaining show. And so I was like, what the hell? Let's go for it. And so I wanted to do my bloodiest and gutsiest magic trick, and they seemed to like it. It went really, really well.
Oh, well, that's awesome. And, if you guys don't know what his magic's like, he can get a little intense sometimes. Brian's one of those that likes to do things like pound nails into his face. And the skit that you gave that night on Penn and Teller was actually pretty intense, too. You dug into some guy's chest with your bare hands and got blood all over the stage and everything else.
Sure. Yeah, no, that was a blast.
Oh.
My favorite part of that routine is not so much the magic trick. The magic trick is, a signed card or bill vanishes and goes, and dig it out of his belly. It's just a variation of the old psychic surgery bit. But what I love about that routine is that I actually get someone up from the audience, And everything about it is carefully crafted to kind of trap someone. The first question I ask is, I need someone in the audience who's willing to do absolutely anything. And then usually there's one person who whoops and comes right on up. And then I walk them through the phases of a card trick or a burn bill routine, and then eventually mixing it with pudding. And then there's that moment where I say, hey, just taste it. And it's just a tiny step. It's just like, yeah, I'll taste the pudding. It's got a little bit of burnt ashes in it. It'll be fine. And then they taste it like, it's fine, right? And that's another trick, because what are they going to say? No? It's like, yeah, it's fine. So now they've said they're willing to do anything. They're on stage with me. They've said the words, yeah, it tastes fine. And then I say, and then that's when the trap closes. I was like, do me a favor, just polish that off. And there's a little extra sauce on there. I say, something amazing is going to happen. The faster you eat, the louder they're going to cheer for you. Watch. And then, there's this moment when they realize that it's checkmate and there's no getting out of it. And so they're like, well, I guess I'm going to wolf it down. I have literally never once had somebody refuse to eat their own burned signed card. It is amazing to me that works.
Let's see if we can actually experience that. I'm not sure if it's going to let it do it here, but we'll see. I'm pretty sure with this new drop-in feature, we should be able to see this. I have a link to that exact feature there. It's a matter of whether it's going to take it at the time that I want. Go ahead.
Oh, there you go. No, I was just going to have, there was a hack.
Cool. I like that. It pops right on up.
Yes, they've got this new feature going on. I'm going to take it to 4 minutes where you actually get the guy on the show.
I tour with a third of my show is 100% real. I really do fire. I really do hammer a nail in my nose. But at some point, the show secretly.
Yeah. Okay. We just had.
I couldn't believe they used that take.
It's a magic show.
All right, here we go. This is the scene.
Another weird? Yeah. Do me a favor. Polish that off.
Well, let's take it back just a hair so we can see this. This is where you mix. You burn all the ashes of the card up. Let's get it right to where you burn the ashes. Okay.
It's playing. It's got me in a different location than it does for you. That's interesting. The drop-in feature doesn't advance it for me.
No, you won't be able to do anything.
No, he's saying it doesn't. We're not all looking at what you're doing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was supposed to work that way, but it's not. So we just have to. We have control of it, but we just need to move it to 4.
Right, let's do it this way then. If everybody has control of it, like I expect it might be the case, take it back to 3 minutes. 3 minutes and 45 seconds within the film itself, and you guys will be able to see this. Take it to 3:45 and hit play. Go now.
Man, we're going to grab this. We'll just go to the. Oh, that's lovely.
Those are all the burnt ashes in the bowl.
Mix this up here. Some people think I'm doing like a magic ashes switcheroo, to which I say, that's done. Okay, do me a favor. Just taste that. Taste that. Tastes fine, right? Nothing weird? Yeah, do me a favor. Polish that off. Something amazing is going to happen. The faster you eat that, the louder their cheer. Watch.
There we go. Isn't that the truth?
Three phases down. We've had an item selected, identified.
That was so awesome. All right, let's pause that back video and get that out of here. I just wanted to let everybody see how influential you can be to other people, Brian. You better talk him into
this.
This
is crazy. Try it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, let's get from the magic and the chaos of your punk rock show. Now you've got all these podcasts going on. You've got all these video casts going on. April of this year, you were out there on the red carpet at the 10th annual Podcasters Awards, hosted by Chris Jericho, and you took home 3 awards. Did you not?
Yeah. You know what? Night Attack took home 2, and I accepted Tom Merritt's DTNS award that night because I knew I'd see him soon and could hand it off. Fun fact, you'll notice on this interview, I'm wearing the exact same clothes and I'm wearing stage makeup because I literally walked right off the stage at Penn and Teller's and then immediately, in fact, I told them, I'm like, hey, there's this podcast awards happening in Las Vegas, the same day you're having me out there. And they're like, oh, we'll just put you on first. You'll be the first one of the day. And then I was able to go straight there.
Exactly. And I'm getting to the video. I actually had it saved and I closed the window and lost my saved spot, but I'm going to see if I can get over to where you were at least interviewed. Brian, one of the folks that we hang out with quite a bit out here, Stephen Haywood, is the the host over there at the Tech Buzz, and he gets out here and does his live thing a lot with a mic in hand. So let me see. And I apologize. I had it all ready to go. Q, if you can find a quick video. There's a video out there on YouTube of Steve Haywood, Red Carpet Podcast, 10th Annual. And I apologize. I'm going to try to get this real quick. But besides that, give us the names of the 3 shows that you won awards for and what those awards were for, Brian, because I haven't gotten the skinny on all that.
Oh, sure. Well, again, Tom does a daily tech news show, which you can see at diamondclub.tv every weekday at 3:30 Central, 1:30 Pacific time. It's the best daily tech news show on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. The show that we won awards for is Night Attack, which every Tuesday night, me and my co-host Justin Robert Young just get together and pull off horse crap and shenanigans. We try to bring the best of the worst of the internet to light. We get wild hares that we want to chase. And we, for example, a couple years back, we faked an erotic fiction novel that ended up being a bestseller on iTunes.
Nice.
We basically sketched a plot. We told all the fans to write a chapter. We just threw it all in a book and then put it up for 99 cents. And then everybody bought it at the exact same time on the exact same day, kicking it into the top 10. And because it looked like 50 Shades of Grey and it sounded like a 50 Shades of Grey, then all the 50 Shades of Grey fans started buying it. And we got some very confused housewives reading up on the exploits.
How are your reviews after they figured it out?
You know what? I still believe that it's a very much a U-shaped curve because there's a whole bunch of 5-star reviews, very few reviews in the middle, and then a bunch of 1-star reviews.
But Brian, since this is my first meeting with you, I am dying to know, in your journey through all of this, or was this what you were always meant to do or looking to do, or was there a quote unquote normal job or normal work somehow like integrated into?
Yeah, before anything, I had a day job. I worked at Dell as part of a third-party inside sales support, which basically means, Dell has their internal training to train you on Dell systems, but whenever somebody wanted something that wasn't a Dell thing, they needed somebody who was just generally experienced at computers. And so we were a part of a group that handled all those calls. And as far as working for the man, it was a pretty good gig. I mean, did it for 2 years, but I still lived for Wednesday nights when I would go down to 6th Street and perform at a place called the Electric Lounge. It's actually just off of 6th Street. But I would perform for 15 minutes and then pass the hat. And if I was lucky, I got to make $50 and I got a couple of beers for free. And at some point I got a raise at the day job and it terrified me because I realized if they gave me another raise, the money would get too good and I would never be able to walk away from it. So I originally said, well, I'm just going to give it a year and see if this works out. And 2 years later, I was on The Tonight Show and I started touring colleges, performing 100 shows a year. And then really the whole internet thing, to get back to what Leland was asking, started because of a failed TV pilot. I had a pilot for Court TV, or a development deal for Court TV, and through the shuffle, they ended up making a bunch of compromised decisions that I said yes to because I, didn't have any leverage, and it ended up going nowhere. And I was so frustrated that I just wanted to start. I wanted to start learning how to be good on camera. And I didn't know how to start. But this is at the early days of the internet. I think YouTube was only a year or two old. So I signed up for a YouTube account and I started doing these 5-minute vignettes of life on the road called Brian Brushwood on the Road. In fact, if you search BBOTR, you can find a whole bunch of those. And I started just practicing. I was genuinely awful. It was like these I had to edit them myself. I had to talk to myself. I just had these cheap 320, by 240 cameras. But it taught me how to speak in sentences that would be easier to edit down the road and how to get into a performance mindset, because it's different. The way you act on stage is not the way you act on video, especially edited video. And so I learned a lot from that, and I pitched Scam School. But once Scam School launched, it, you know, I again was enchanted by this idea of live streaming. You know, you see folks like Leland Laporte getting out there and they're just able to speak into a microphone and keep on going and keep everything afloat, speaking complete sentences on the fly. And I was like, that's hard. I want to try doing that now. So I started a Ustream account and just started going from there. The overarching theme has always been that I wanted to find safe places to be bad before I could get good. And as far as, you know, whether or not I belong anywhere, man, I don't even know. All I know is if I'm diversified enough, then I can, one of them has to turn out to be a winner. You just buy a bunch of scratch offs.
Well, going from Magic then, Brian, to where you are now, what kind of prepared you for the career you're looking at today, where you're out on Discovery Channel as Scam School, you're out on Nat Geo as Hacking the System? And if any of you guys have not seen these shows, just get out there and search them. Go to the Nat Geo website and look up Brian Brushwood show.
Oh, no, not anymore. Now you got to head on over to Netflix, where, wait for it.
I was watching them last night.
Hacking the System just joined Netflix and is currently the number 11 most popular program on Netflix, which is insane to me.
That is cool, dude. And if you guys want to, it's going to be, you know, summer coming up. If you need to know how to make an air conditioner out of a foam cooler, a bag of ice, and a fan with a couple of water bottles, Brian will show you how to do that. So,
you know, you have a huge audience in Arizona for that.
Yes. Yeah, no kidding.
We're baking cookies in the car. Like, it's just so hot.
So which ones do you have the most fun with, Brian, when it comes down to it? I know, you know, Night Talk won an award, and that's kind of an adult-based show. It gets a little heavy, you know, and you've got Cord Cutters. You've got Scam School, which is, you know, for your modern-day rogue, a little bit about lock picking, a little bit about this, a little bit about that, and how to do things that not everyone likes to play with. But which one's the most fun to you? What do you like the best?
Right now, I'm most excited about the Modern Rogue, but I mean, all of them they're all so different. They're all different frames of mind. They all have different size audiences, and the stakes are different. And they make different amounts of money, and they require different amounts of collaboration. There are times that it's really great to just, you know, walk into the studio and clown around and drink beers with Justin on Night Attack. There's times that it feels really great to pretend to be a journalist on Cord Killers. And but as far as, you know, maybe because it's a new property and because it's a spiritual successor to Hacking the System, I really am having a blast doing the Modern Rogue with Jason Murphy. We learned how to hack the Taco Bell menu to recreate their most popular items for a big fat discount using their app. We recently made homemade gas masks and then stood up to a pepper spray grenade, which was intense, to say the least.
And I saw you doing a flamethrower thing on a video with somebody the other day, that little Spider-Man thing that shoots the...
Oh, sure. Yeah. That's a
out of it. Flash paper.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, and I asked you a question, and I'm just going to go here before we get to the end of the show where we're going to have some people ask their own questions. And, you know, I called in on a show where you were with Stephen Haywood and several others. Mike was out there. Mike Myers was out there with you. And I asked you about how it is with where you're at now, how you earn an income doing what you do. Obviously, you get paid by the networks to put your shows together. But when it comes to the podcasting, a lot of people out here, they want to do their own show. They want to do their own thing. They want to get some buzz drummed up, and they want to really, you know, make a living out of it, because they don't just want to be able to broadcast for the fun of it. Some people do. It's a hobby to them. But what do you advise to folks? And when I ask the question, I'm going to put a link in later to the other show. And actually, Marty, if you're out there, I would appreciate if you could grab one of Stephen Haywood's links for me and drop that in the chat. What do you do to monetize your shows? What do you do to get out there? Is it Patreon that's making the most money for you? Is it, you know, brand deals or what have you, or is it product sales? Give our crew here a little bit of insight on what it is you do.
Sure. Well, if anyone wants to make money doing any kind of broadcasting on the internet, the first thing you have to do is provide value and figure out where your value is. Do your natural gifts lend yourself to being funny on the internet? Is there an unmet need on the internet? You know, maybe there's you know, a particular niche of wrestling that you're an expert in, that nobody's doing a podcast on, then you could dive in and you can make a comfortable place, because by virtue of being there first, you become the world's foremost show on whatever that is. And after providing value, and that's exactly what we're doing with Cord Killers. Cord Killers, there was no number one show for people who wanted to watch what they want, when they want, on whatever damn device they please. So we created it. It's a show where we cover news and reviews for people who want to watch stuff on Hulu, Netflix, and Amazon Prime. And along with that value, once you've built that value, you can figure out a way to monetize it with that audience. Now, you'll have a sense of what your audience likes, and you'll have a sense of how they want to throw you some cash. Some audiences, you could tell that they're not going to be deeply passionate and engaged. So it's probably best to go with some kind of a CPM advertising deal. You go and you read ads, and then based on how many people you're reaching, then you collect money on it. Other people, they don't want ads. What they want to do is feel like they're part of an advocacy movement, in which case, if they're super passionate, Patreon works out fantastic. We had heard of Patreon, but we hadn't tried it. And then we reached out, and when we launched Cord Killers, we said, hey, man, we're going to try this crazy Patreon thing. And it just blew up. And it literally made it possible to where all of a sudden, instantly, there was 1 or 2 shows a week I didn't have to do on the road anymore. My life switched 2 years ago from being a touring performer who dabbled in podcasting and internet broadcasting. But the moment that Patreon went up, it was like, suddenly it's like, no, I'm an internet broadcaster who does live shows from time to time. And so you have to know your audience. Another way is we realized that the folks who, for example, watch Scam School aren't necessarily going to be the type that want to throw money in your face, or particularly are fans of advertising. So as a result, we came up with I guess me, we opened up scamstuff.com, which is, we call it Gear for the Modern Rogue, where it's a bunch of magic, novelty, lock-picking items that are all relevant to the interests of folks. And you start to see this in other stuff. You notice that when you go to boingboing.net, you're scrolling down through articles, and it says, hey, buy this mug on the Boing Boing store. Same with the crack.com. They allow you to give money to them indirectly by buying items from them. And that's a way to give value to your audience, while also giving them an opportunity to get revenue to keep your live streams healthy.
Oh, for sure. And I just dropped a link into the extra window there, folks. So if you are interested in any of the stuff for the Modern Rogue out at Scam Stuff, go take a look, because I'm sure Brian would appreciate anything you guys can do for him as he moves along. It takes a lot of work to put together the types of productions that Brian's doing. I mean, Brian, do you have one of your cameras available to show where you're sitting in your studio there?
Unfortunately, I don't. I know this is crazy, but 9 o'clock in the morning is fairly early for me. So there's my empty seat in the studio over there. That's all I got set up.
Yeah, I know you usually.
Here, you know what? Here, I'll just grab the webcam and.
Oh, that's okay. If they wanted to see it from the other production that was done on Steven's show, you've got quite a studio over there. You've got all kinds of monitors set up. You've got a slew of equipment that you need to produce a podcast like that, and you're dealing with Skype issues. You're mixing, blending, working with other hosts and co-hosts, so it gets pretty complicated. And I'm just now building up my equipment end over on this side. I've got a couple of monitors, couple of cameras, a mixing board, and things like that. But I've got a long way to go before I'm producing podcast quality work on a regular basis. So you heard when we started this morning, I still need a mic. So working on that too. If anyone out there, it's getting to the 10:30 halfway through mark, and Brian has only an hour to be with us today. So I'd really like to get some questions from folks out in the seats. Feel free to put a /Q prior to your question, and we can get those answered by Brian. If you have any questions regarding magic, mayhem, punk rock, I don't care what it is, throw it out there and we'll see what Brian has to say about it.
Sure.
Brian,
By the way, I just put in the chat a link to a studio tour of the old setup that I have, where Mike Koenig took me, or asked me all the questions that people ask about setting up all their stuff, and I walked through the budget of everything. Everything from how we constructed the backdrops to what equipment we started off with, how we built it, and for how we got production value out of buying corrugated plastic and throwing some fluorescent lights with gels around them in the back. It's amazing how you can look pretty legit for very, very low cost.
Yeah, and that's part of your whole hacking the system concept, is being able to get out there, save some money, do what it is that you can do DIY, so that you're not dropping all these big dollars on what everybody produces at a market level, manufacturer's level. Play around a little bit with what you can do yourself, and you save a ton of money. And I think that's an awesome concept. So,
well, most people don't realize that, like, lean startup, that method doesn't only exist as you're starting. If you can carry out those practices throughout, you can create different types of opportunities later. Am I right, Brian?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Well, realize that it's not about how much money your podcast or broadcast takes in. It's about whether or not you're profitable. Because if you pull in $1,000 an episode and spend $900 every episode, then you're still only making $100 an episode. So at that point, like, why even bother? If you could do it just as cheaply and make $100 an episode, or much cheaper,
yeah,
keep yourself svelte.
And that's kind of why we all come out here to Blab, Brian. The guys like Sean and Jason and Jonah, who have managed to help put this platform together, along with several others. Don't get me wrong. There's a bunch of people from around the globe. They're in Germany, they're in Canada, they're in LA, over in the San Francisco area, et cetera, who are all working hard behind the scenes to help us get this platform up and running. And we've seen a ton of people create shows. It started out thin, and Jonathan Tripp and I did probably 80 episodes out here together ourselves. And this was the platform I spoke of to you on the phone during Steven's broadcast. And now there's more and more people starting to do this multi-stream broadcast. Is that something you're doing also? Are you broadcasting to more than one place at one time? Or are you specific at each show's level that you're just doing one thing, one broadcast?
It is fascinating to me to see. I'm going to confess something. I used to be obsessed with how many people we were reaching live, how many people we were reaching in the downloaded podcast for each of the programs that we did. But once we went to Patreon, once we became listener and viewer supported, all of a sudden there was only one number I cared about, and only one group of people I had to cater to, and that's the 1,628 patrons who are currently kicking in anywhere from a penny to $50 an episode for Night Attack. And all of a sudden it was like these are my bosses. These are all the people I have to worry about. So as a result, I steered away from worrying about multiple outlets of broadcasting, and instead we really focused on diamondclub.tv as this awesome clubhouse where people could see this constellation of independent broadcasters on all their various platforms. And if you go to diamondclub.tv, it is insane the work that Sergeant Muffin, not his real name, I suspect, has done. To create, this welcoming chat, the fact that there are multiple channels running at any given time, and you can see all of our friends broadcasting on there. It's become this kind of shared. I hesitate to say resource because it makes them seem like they're not, a delightful collection of individual humans, but this shared audience that we're all able to reach.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's awesome. All right, Q, I know we've got some questions starting to roll in. That first one on the list over there was something Azim asked early on, so I'm just going to delete that. So yeah, if you want to drop a question into the open seat for us, we'll go ahead and we're going to read these aloud, Brian, because they don't show up in the recording themselves. So in order for the audience that sees the post-production, they're not going to know what the question is unless we read it to them. So Q, I'm going to let you read the questions to Brian, if you don't mind.
I was always the one chosen to do this in class, so I'm a professional. Will live internet broadcasts merge in the future with TV? And would love to hear your take on this, Brian.
Yeah, you know what? That was part of the original pitch that I did for hacking the system. I posited, there's a lot of talk about the second screen experience, and there have been some people who made companion apps that will, pop up trivia that go alongside like The Walking Dead. It would show you stuff, and it might pop up and give you facts or whatever. Another program might be able to say, like, here's the map of where they are. You ever track real time? I don't think that has really stuck, although we did try an experiment with hacking the system. We tried doing what we called watch parties, where we would go, obviously we can't rebroadcast hacking the system live, but what we could do is we could watch it with the volume turned down, and you could watch us watching it live and synchronize it up with the show. So, of course, we obviously worked really hard on these shows. We're excited about them. And in fact, I believe if you type in hacking the system watch party, I'll try that. They should be able, yeah, there we go. Viewing party is what we call them. You can actually, as you watch them on Netflix, you can see us watching our own show for the very first time. And it's kind of cool to get that electricity in there. You also get, because it's, recorded video, you get the live reactions of the chat room as they're seeing it for the first time. But as far as what most people are going to do in terms of television and a second screen experience, I think the real future of the second screen experience is essentially what we already get out of Twitter. I don't think we want too much of our attention pulled away to something else competing for our visual and audio attention. I think what we want is little glances so we can just know what other people are saying and thinking as we're watching it together.
Yeah, and there is, just to follow up on that a little bit, Brian, and I'll try to post a link before the show's over of a blog post that I did a while back with regards to accessibility. You can look up, I think it's 3Play Media that did the forum. It was a hangout on air, I believe, that was done between some of the Google engineers and many of the up-and-coming top video player producers out there, like JPlayer and much of the VL player and things like that, who are the backbone of video production when it comes to the internet and our ability to play, MP4 files on our computers. And what I've discovered is they are enhancing the video playback experience at such a level where you're going to have a side window on your player that's going to have chapters and discussions and link outs and based on topics that are within the video themselves, mostly from a scholastic and an informative learning experience. But there are those aspects that are coming down the road, and it's actually being incorporated into the YouTube player also, I believe, in the near future. So when you consider the additional information that's going to attach to some of this video production work that people are doing now, there's a big future for it, and we're just going to have to see where it goes. We don't know yet.
I think it's only going to get bigger. We're becoming more and more accustomed to an information overload, the ability to glance aside and get more information and search for what's relevant to us. I can totally see a future where every time you watch a video, there's sort of a fusion of a pop-up video where how SoundCloud, as you listen to music, it preserves when it says everyone's comments about it. I could see that meshed with a Reddit style upvote downvote system where maybe people say things and then people are like, maybe they say, hey, if you're interested in this magic trick, it's actually based on this Doug Henning routine. Check this out. This is the original of it. And then people are like, oh, that's really helpful and useful. And then as you're watching it, you're able to shift over and curate your experience live.
For sure. All right, let's get to the next question. What do we got?
From Chris, I just started in Patreon. What would be a good startup campaign to get people started?
That's a really good question. Number one, evaluate how much value and you have with the brand. It's sort of think in terms of you plant seeds and then you harvest the results. In the case of Night Attack, we had been broadcasting for 5-6 years. Is that right? Holy cow. Before we finally said, hey, do you guys mind paying us directly? Because we literally made basically $150 each for the entire first 5 years that we did it. And then finally we're like, well, do you guys want to give us more? And it turned out, yes, they did. And so in that case, everybody knew hold on. Man, there's so much to say about Patreon. It's so dynamic and so shifting and so changing, and nobody's really cracked the sauce at this point. But I do know that some people, I suspect that most of the people donating to Patreon just want to give what Adam Curry calls value for value. Basically, they just want to say, I enjoy your show. I'd like to commit to giving you $1 per episode forever, or for as long, until I get bored. And those people don't really need all of the extra, the extra perks. There are some people, but there are some people who want access. They're all like, I like your show. I want to feel closer to you. And so for those people, if you have a certain level, then they get admittance to a weekly Google Hangout that you do just for the patrons. Other people are like, I love it. I want everything. So you can make the pre-show and the post-show available to that level of patrons. Having rewards and having something just a little, having different tiers with, I think matters a lot. People love badges and they love, figuring out what station they want to be at. And we've tinkered with a few different things of that, but we still haven't figured out what we want to do forever.
Yeah, and it just takes time. You got to really get to know what your own brand is and get to know what your audience is all about, because it's them who are going to decide what your worth is out here as a podcaster or a broadcaster. And you can never anticipate what the number is going to be until it develops, and you just have to give it an opportunity.
Well,
okay.
I would also suggest, most people, right? Like if we're talking about monetizing and putting things together, all these campaigns, they're nothing without a strategy. And so, if you have to employ someone or get a second opinion about a strategy to make sure that you have plan A, plan B, like that's super important. It's like the one thing that people, I think, forget about, like, oh, we should probably have a plan.
Yeah, well, and have multiple plans. I'm a huge fan of planning for every contingency. It's said that Napoleon was not a great on the ground decision maker. It's just that he planned for every possible contingency, and whatever the enemy did, he was like, okay, they're doing this thing. I've already planned for it. We're going to do this in retaliation.
Yeah.
Sure.
All right.
Before the show's over, get a tweet out to all those people out there that on Twitter. So I would appreciate if you could send that link out. We're getting down to the last 15 minutes here, folks. We're going to take a couple more of the post questions. I think we've only got one more left here. Do we not, Q?
Yep,
and I've been holding these ropes over here, Brian, for a little bit. And
magic show time!
Doing my own little show pennant or full Brian Brushwood type thing. I'm sure you've probably seen this trick in the past, but I just wanted to throw that out there in case you guys are wondering what the hell I'm doing with two ropes in my hand. So let's throw this other question out, and then we'll open up the seat to anyone that wants to come in and say hi to Brian live, and we'll go on from there.
This is from Nazim and Betty. Would also love to hear your feedback on VR, AR apps, and viewers, and if you plan on looking at it this soon.
Yeah, full disclosure, Justin and I just did a series of, oh, wow, they just released a new one. Fantastic. We did a series for Discovery VR called Let's Go Places Austin, and we went to 10 different places. It looks like, the last one just released. No, wait, is that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Yeah, so it looks
all stoked.
But these are amazing interactive vignettes where you using anything from your browser to your Google Glass or your Google goggle. No, wait, Cardboard. Google Cardboard. They got so many things that sounds.
Yeah, there you go.
Google Cardboard, or just using your cell phone, and you're able to look all around as we do these adventures. As far as the future of it, man. Here's all I know is that nobody knows really what VR wants to be yet. And the winner is going to be whoever, number one, again, diversifies. They're going to try a lot of different things. Number two, they're going to listen and watch what people do and react to. It's going to be a first mover advantage. I talk about this, as a matter of fact, at a panel I just did at South by Southwest. In the 1970s, cable got deregulated. And so all of a sudden there's all this empty bandwidth. All of a sudden, anyone could have a channel if you had $1 million or so. And you would think that the kings of broadcast television, NBC, CBS, ABC, they would go in first, but they don't, because they got no motivation. They're like, there's no audience there. Why would we go? Nobody's watching. And so they didn't. And as a result, your Ted Turners, your CNN, your TBS, your HBOs got an early foothold, and it was indomitable. And finally, NBC was like, okay, fine, we're jumping in. So they launched CNBC, which was just going to be cable NBC, but it couldn't find a foothold because it was too late. They were just like, we're just NBC on cable, and everyone's like, well, we don't need NBC on cable. We got all this other stuff, and so it wasn't until they found an unfilled niche with CNBC being a business news focused 24-hour network that they were able to get a foothold. But it's because they listened to what people seem to want. So in that regard, I'm going to say VR, it's going to be much the same thing. It's going to be a lot of people trying stuff. Something's going to really pop, and then we're going to realize like, oh, there's these unfilled niches. As far as AR, man, that's truly the wild, wild west, because that's an entirely different thing. I don't know if it's going to be more of a video game experience, a productivity-based experience, a constant always-on experience. We'll just see about that one.
Not your daddy's Viewmaster anymore, is it? If you guys haven't seen that, Viewmaster by Mattel actually has a new device out too, which my niece has. And you take your cell phone and you pop it in, but you buy modules for it, where you put the Viewmaster on now and you're literally in a VR world trying to move around. You're stepping over things and running into chairs and walls and everything else while you're doing it. But it's such an experience. It's pretty wild stuff. So was there anything else, Brian, just before we finish up here, that you saw at South by Southwest? And I know Marty McPadden was out there himself. You might have ran into him while you were out there or not, but what did you see out there that was maybe off the cuff that people aren't expecting to see, that was kind of something you didn't expect when you were out there? Was there anything that kind of tweaked your interest that you weren't finding?
You know, we were talking about this. Justin and I were talking about the fact that, every year there's kind of the hot thing, and we couldn't really put a finger on it this year. We didn't know. We had an inkling that maybe it was independent broadcasting, that is just, going independent. Maybe it's kind of this, Patreon spring happening. I'm not entirely sure. Today is actually the first day that I'm not sick, so I can head on out, and I was going to check out some of the stuff downtown.
I hear you. All right. Well, I'm going to do one thing. We got one more question left there. This is probably the easiest trick in the book, and I'd be happy to show this.
Time out. You're making a classic mistake. There are two things magicians do that drive me nuts, and they always do. They perform for other magicians. They apologize for their act in advance. Don't do that. And number two, they're worried about whether or not the magician will be fooled. The magician isn't going to be fooled. Your job is to entertain. Look, that's why my clip on, if you would call it a success, on Penn and Teller, it's only because I had no interest in trying to fool them, only in entertaining them.
True. That's a good point. All right. So you guys can obviously see here, I have a couple of pieces of rope that are just about a foot long somewhere in there. And there's nothing to this trick, really. It's just two pieces of rope. And I'm going to take these two pieces of rope and I'm going to tie them together on the ends. Now, I was going to do this a different way at one point, but I didn't feel like it was necessary. So I've got these two pieces of rope. It's a 2-foot piece of rope tied together on both ends. And it really comes down to this, folks. Are you ready?
What? The knot has vanished and the two have become one.
Just got to pull hard enough so that they come together.
Props for the magician.
How do I clap? Do I click this clap button on here?
No, that doesn't work. But at least you're applauding in one form or another. So that's all it takes, folks, to put the rope back together.
Clap. Well, this is fun. I like clapping.
I could do some other
They
stuff.
call them props.
He's gonna keep clapping the entire time. Why didn't you tell me I couldn't just keep clapping?
So it's actually, those are just props to let people know that you agree with what they say or what have you. So that's all good.
Or you're one of the most interesting people in the room. It's like a grade.
I got to clap for give props to Q. There we go. Everyone.
All right, so we've got one more question by Jason. I'll just throw it out there. Any more Discovery VR episodes lined up, Schwood?
I don't know if I'm supposed to say, and it's difficult to remember, but it looks like we got 8 released, and I seem to remember other adventures we had that haven't showed up here. So I would suspect that would indicate yes. This is the first time. The latest one is this glass blowing one that was just insane. It was like real lava, and they did this amazing time lapse where you see them roll the glass and make this insane giant vase. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I go watch those guys out at the Renaissance Festival all the time in our area when they come into town. So, yeah, it's awesome to watch those guys do that. Okay, well, we've got a seat open. We've got just enough time. Brian's got 10 minutes to hang out with us. So I know Nazim wanted to jump in a seat and say hi. Nazim, you're first up. So come on in if you're still in the room. And then if anyone else would like an opportunity to say hi to Brian personally live here on the show, we'll go from there. Go ahead and let him in. Nazim.
Hey, great show, guy. Great show. Fantastic show. Brian, you just got a fan across the pond. I mean, I've never heard about you.
Oh, right on.
I'm already on the Netflix. I already got the show lined up. And the funny thing is that we did a presentation because we're doing a VR project over here for a major Italian client. And during the presentation, I showed the Austin when you guys were skiing on the river.
No kidding. Yeah, that's amazing. And you didn't know it was me.
And I didn't know it was you. Now it's like, okay, now I know who this guy is.
That's amazing. Oh, that's funny because, you know, I used to barefoot water ski with my dad 10 years ago. And Justin and I, our entire friendship, he's never known that I knew how to do it. And we talked about it. We're like, oh, yeah, we should go barefoot water skiing. And they're like, what's that? And I explained. And Justin is like legit mad. He's like, you never told me you were a professional barefoot water skier. I looked like an ass out there. Yeah, it was amazing. An amazing day.
It's a great VR. It's a great VR. Anyway, super nice meeting you. You got a brand new fan. I'm gonna check the hacking the system and all the other stuff you got.
Fantastic, man.
Thank you for letting me in. Bye, guys. Bye.
All right, thanks, Nazim. Appreciate you stopping in. He's a good friend of mine from across the pond over Milan, Italy. So he's got a lot of connections. He knows a lot of people. He does a lot of big things. So great to have him out here on Blab. And Jason, the tech stud,
yeah.
one of the guys behind the Blab scene that helps us do our thing out here, had a question for you. He's a huge fan of yours also. Brian, I was talking to him earlier yesterday about you coming on the show. So if you could answer Brian as to what you think of this platform.
Yeah, right on. Oh, wait. Oh, sorry. I thought he was going to pop on in person.
I tried to get him to do it, but
get out here, pop in the seat and ask him yourself. We should make him, since he is, you know.
I was going to say question time was over unless you sit in a seat.
No, I like that idea, Q. So you can't. We're not going to answer your question unless you sit in the seat.
Well, as far as
how hardcore I am.
I love how unrelentingly high fidelity the experience is. It forces the performers to realize that they're always on. There's no picking your nose when the camera's not on you, and it gives so much power to the audience to direct the conversation.
And this is Jason. There we go.
Good morning.
Oh, there's Jason. Hey, man, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
Hey, good to see you. Where are you from, man?
I'm near Toronto.
Oh, right on. Very cool. Well, dude, thank you so much for being a fan, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I've been following, well, I mean, you and Leo and stuff for like a bajillion years. So I have to, you know, full disclosure, I have taken a break from that for a little bit. Mm-hmm. You know, gets to be a lot, and it's a lot of repetitive stuff sometimes. And I get that too. But yeah, I got a life change happened. Now I'm working with Blab, loving it. Got this great platform going on here. Saw that you popped on, and I came in a little bit late. I'm going to catch the replay because it's pretty damn cool. I'm here. But welcome to the platform.
Absolutely.
How you like it so far? What do you think?
Yeah,
what are your first opinion?
It reminds me of what I loved about the early days of like Stickam and Tiny Chat, and you know, there's been different iterations of the idea of multiple always on cameras, and it looks like you guys have really struck a balance, and I love the fact that other people can hop into seats, and that it gives moderator controls and stuff. It'll be really fun to watch this all grow.
You know, Leo popped on here a few months ago, actually, when early days of beta here, actually. He popped into in just happenstance, I guess. Our community manager, Brittany, put a little tweet out to him, and he took the bait. He clicked on it, popped in here, and he was like, holy shit. He pretty much just destroyed my Skyposaurus.
Yeah, that's amazing. I remember having those exact same feelings when in the early days, before there was Night Attack, before there was an SFW, back when I was doing something I called the BB Live Show for Brian Brushwood Live. When we got Jay Adelson, co-founder of Dig, on, I was just like, and when Jim Louderback would call in from, the CEO of Revision 3 at the time, it was you don't realize how much leverage you have by having a platform, and you don't perceive that any kind of live audience is a big, huge deal, and you can make a lot of noise and attract a lot of attention.
Yeah, for sure. One thing that we've been doing really well here, I think, with is a good conversation. So it's a great open platform to be able to come in here and shoot the shit, have a good conversation, and you know how conversations. I mean, you and the people that you chat with all the time, you get into, you start off on something, you have sort of a mindset, you have maybe 2 or 3 points, and it goes 70 different directions after that, right? And it's great, good organic conversation.
Absolutely.
Anyway, well, welcome. We hope to see you around maybe a little bit more often.
Yeah, you got it, man. Did we lose Leland? Am I in charge of the show now?
No. I'm host. I mean, unless you want to, you're in first seat.
No. Wait, is this like a first thing in band? I get to lord it over people.
Whatever you want.
Probably lost internet or something.
Yeah, he's probably refreshing. But that's
right
why we have co-hosts, right, Jason?
That's right. Yep. And if you don't have a co-host, you have me, the admin.
Probably abuse that card.
So where do we go from here?
I would never.
Oh, Jason.
All right. I'll bid you to do.
Oh, he's back.
Take care, guys. Have fun. And thanks for dropping in, Brian.
Awesome. You got it, boss. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
He's back.
Wow. Had a little internet bomb glitch.
That was me this morning, too. I was like, what the heck?
It was. Gotcha. All right. Well, we're at 10:57. I see we got just a couple more maybe questions that popped in. We got VR. Oh, I guess that was him. Okay, we're all set. Well, Brian, I don't want to take up more time than I need to from you today, but I do want to ask you, and I wanted to get Brian or Jason before I got kicked out of the room to get you a Blab T-shirt, a little bit of, something to get you back out here again, just to join up with some of us folks who come out here on a regular basis. You see a lot of us out here almost immediately.
I'll send you my address. You can get that right over.
Yeah, just get out here and stop by and see us sometime, impromptu or casually. I know you're a busy guy. You've got a lot going on, but this seems to be a community of people who are really involved in the podcast, vidcasting scene. You see a lot of social marketers out here, obviously, but there's a lot of big players starting to come out here and at least become that behind the brand person to their fan base. And I think that's where this really takes off. It's not about the show itself. It's about the communication and the connection people are making out here, that you're getting to see a person face to face, get to know them down deep, and just hang out with someone. That's really more what this platform's all about, I think. So TechStud says DM him on Twitter and he'll make sure you get a shirt. So, and Jason, I want one of those with the Blab logo on it too. You guys got to get us some of those. Those are awesome.
The best ones.
But Brian, thanks again. If you have a link for anything you want to drop before you leave, Brian, drop it over there in the chat. If you want to get a hold of Brian, it's brian@schwood.com, and you can catch him on Discovery at Scam School and Nat Geo at Hacking the System. So make sure you get out there and give him some props on his television productions while you're at it. Brian, thanks so much for being here.
Dude, thank you guys for having me.
All right.
Great to meet you, Brian.
Good to meet you.
We're going to stop the recording and then we'll let you go. Everyone, thanks for coming. I do appreciate it. This is Leland Best. If you want to catch me next Wednesday at 11 o'clock on The Nothing Show. So we'll see you then. Take care, everybody.